Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron and it's 2020. It's a new year. My forehead is still slightly balding, but I'm apparently growing some horns in the back of my head, apparently, I guess. Anyway, welcome to today's discussion where we are talking about 3.9 and our reactions to 3.9. We're just under a month into the league, and so I figured I'd throw it out there on the poll to see what everybody's thoughts were. So we set this poll up. Granted, it's not a perfect poll. Disclaimers, don't hear what I'm not saying, all of those wonderful qualifiers yet to go. But we set it up with three essential responses to the question. 3 weeks into Metamorph and the new Atlas, what are your thoughts? So option 1 was, I enjoy every moment of the 3.9 and daydream when I'm not playing. Option 2 was, there are definitely some rushed aspects of 3.9. And option 3, because it's mandatory apparently now that I include a meh option, is 3.9 isn't my favorite, and it's not the worst update, so meh. So those were our three options that we asked y'all to vote on, and 345 of you participated in the poll, so thanks so much for participating in the poll, and shout out to everybody that dropped a comment. We're going to go through some of your comments today, but of course, as always, if you're new to the channel, you can like, subscribe, and ding the bell for more discussions just like this one. And if at any point in time you'd like to jump ahead or revisit any of our topics, there are timestamps that are placed directly below my slightly elongating beard for your convenience today. So jumping in right away, there's of course this sentiment right here from I'm In: the encounter system sucks. So I've just got to say this. The best part that I have found personally from the new revamping of the Atlas is actually the encounter system for matching your character with Conquerors and with Cirrus prior to the 21st Watchstone. So in other words, building up to your first Cirrus fight, which occurs at the 20th Watchstone. I've seen a lot of people asking questions, when am I ever going to get to fight Cirrus? It's not at 16. 16 was like a magic number that I guess a lot of us just pulled because we thought that was halfway through 32 Watchstones, right? So we thought that that might be the progression when you fight Cirrus, but it's actually at 20. So when you get your 20th Watchstone, you will get a quest dialogue option with Zana that allows you to go fight Cirrus for the first time. Now, this sentiment that the encounter system sucks is one that I agree with after you first encounter Cirrus. The first time that you encounter Cirrus, you essentially grind, and every couple of maps you get influence, every couple more maps you generate a couple of different taunts, and boom, away you go. You fight a Conqueror, Bob's your uncle, and you're on to the next Conqueror, right? It's relatively regulated and predictable and farmable. There's some sense of progression as you build up towards that first Cirrus fight. However, getting past your first Cirrus fight, everything just goes to RNG heaven, or player hell, player choice hell, right? Everything is just RNG. I cannot tell you the number of players in Guild, on YouTube, you among the community, our players on Discord, have simply had Atlas scenarios where they are running dozens of maps and not getting the next Watchstone either influence to spawn or getting the next taunt to go off, because everything after you've encountered Cirrus for the first time is RNG. Now, there are different community members who are trying different strategies, so it could be at some point that either GGG patches this, or it could be at some point that we learn that there's some sort of strategy that we've all just missed out on. But for the most part, I've got to say, I think the encounter system rocks going up through the 21st Watchstone, up through your first fight with Cirrus. Then when everything turns to just an RNG fest, it's utterly crap. Right? In a trade league scenario with the old Atlas, if you needed, let's say, a completion, or you wanted to go fight a boss, let's say you wanted to go fight a tier 16 Minotaur or Hydra or whatever, right? If you want to go fight Shaper, you can go do that. You just go buy the fragments and you go do it, right? Well, when everything goes to RNG, there's no sense of progression. There's no sense of, yes, I can attempt this, yes, I can't. Maybe I've earned enough currency to earn the right to go fight this particular boss, or I've put in enough time to go fight this boss. There were several times where a couple of guildmates and I, past the 20th Watchstone, we simply had situations where we would be grinding and maybe generate influence like within a map or two, and then generate several taunts within a map or two, and then you'd go dozens of maps with nothing, and we'd socket, unsocket Watchstones, we would try different maps, we would try to generate influence on different parts of the Atlas to get multiple different influences spawned simultaneously. It was very, very frustrating after that first Cirrus encounter. So I think, just to add my own balance to this, yes, the encounter system sucks, but I would say after the 20th Watchstone is when it really goes downhill. D'Artagnan says, got up to 6 Watchstones, got bored with the slow progression, and the damage nurse, increased enemy resists, made my first 2 characters feel awful because they were already just okay on damage before. Finally broke down and played a Necro. Damage was absurd, but I just couldn't keep interest in continuing. I will say this. GGG, whenever they do a revamp or an expansion to end game stuff, it generally takes a league or 2 for everybody to get used to it, right? So D'Artagnan, I gotta say, if you're bummed out with the way the system is right now, don't worry, because this is probably the worst the system is going to be in 2020, right? On release is generally when things are at their worst. It's also over the holiday period, so it's when the least number of employees are at GGG to actually make tweaks. Over the next week or so, Grinding Gear is going to release several different patches in order to update and fix several different issues that are going on. Shout out to all the GGG employees who did work through the holidays to fix various bug fixes that were popping up and crash instances that were popping up. So I would say that this is probably the worst instance in the worst scenario of this new Atlas that we're going to be in. So if this didn't interest you because the idea wasn't executed well enough, or because there just wasn't enough information, or because you were just getting used to it due to slow progression, don't worry, better strategies will be out next league, and we'll all have a better sense of how to progress our Atlas in 3.10 than we did in 3.9. Tindicappa says, Metamorphs are too laggy, and okay, I understand that bosses and PoE need to one-shot you because you can log out, but for some reason every time I have desync against a Metamorph is right before the one-shot. I will simply say this, Tinda, one of the great aspects of Metamorph League is we've now got bosses that use a ton of different abilities, right? Because they're a combination of different of essentially different creatures or different monsters that occur throughout Rayclass. That's a cool thing, right? But the downside of that is some monsters simply have these abilities that when they're backing up one after the other, after the other, after the other, many of us have got machines that maybe don't necessarily handle them that well. And so for whatever reason, maybe you lag, maybe you desync, maybe it is that you just straight up instance crash, but I gotta say that that is something that is quite annoying. If you're going in to fight a Metamorph, you feel like you finally progressed through the map and earned the right to actually, get your juicy Metamorph fought, and then you're just like, I'm dead. What killed me? I desynced. I didn't even get a chance to see it. So that definitely sucks, and hopefully that will be addressed here in the coming weeks. Quixie says, need a 4th option. Evacuated due to bushfires and going through serious PoE withdrawal. Smiley face, seriously wish PoE mobile was already a thing. Shout out to Quixie and all of our Australian viewers. Hope you guys are all safe. I've actually got family that's over in Australia right now. Everybody's safe from their perspective, but shout out to everybody in Australia that's going through all these wildfires and the displacement, because that's just absolutely awful for everyone who's over there. So I guess we'll include that as a 4th option next time, but glad to hear you're safe, Quixie, even if it does mean for a bit that you're going to have to be going through PoE withdrawal. Mr. Lava says, the Metamorph thing is okay, I guess, if you can see what's going on the screen. The new Atlas is super grindy, and the new boss battle is an unfinished design at best. A lot of lag like never before, especially on the boss last phase. I have to say that GGG is moving in the right direction with the game, but sending 120 guys, all the staff, on vacation at the same time on League release shows how disrespectful a company can be towards its clients. Like, even if it's New Year, it's not good to do sucky things. In Betrayal League last year it happened, and now the same act of bad management and careless management. Okay, so here's the thing. I gotta say this to Mr. Lava. I'm with you on the one hand, right? On the one hand, the release schedule is probably awful, for management side of things, right? Because everybody at Grinding Gear Games, one of the things that Grinding Gear Games prides themselves on as a business, I can understand as clients and as a consumer base, none of us appreciate this, right? I can totally get that. But as a business, one of the things that GGG prides themselves on is they don't have crunch like other gaming companies have crunch. You can simply Google what is game developer crunch. In a short summary sentence, game developer crunch is when game development companies for months on end, sometimes even upwards of a year, demand that their developers, that their programmers, that their staffers all come in ridiculous amounts of hours in order to push out an end product. And the vast majority of the time, at least in today's gaming world, even still, it's still usually a buggy and not necessarily a great product for other products out there on the market. Grinding Gear Games doesn't require their staffers to do that, and on top of that, this is their holiday season. So, Mr. Lava, I would just put it back to you, and I would put it back to everybody else out in the community who feels like, oh, I know it's the holidays, but why aren't they working harder for us? Here's the other side of that coin. The other side of that coin is, you might say, well, simply don't release expansions over the holidays, right? If you're going to release the biggest amount of content that you're going to release for the year, your expansion plus a new league, if you release it over the holidays, that's kind of on the company's fault for deciding that's their schedule. That being said, it's also the time when many of us have got the most dedicated time to actually playing games. Right? Now, maybe that's not everybody, but I know at least for me personally, I have streamed way more Path of Exile during this holiday season than I have done on this channel over the last 2 to 3 years in total. Like, this holiday season was it. My work was particularly slow, which meant that I had more time to play games, and I still had time to be with my family. So I got to do all of the things that I wanted to do over the holiday season. Now, that being said, I recognize that I also am just a small portion of the community. So again, if they changed everything just for me, it wouldn't be representative for everybody. So what I'm trying to say is this is kind of a really tricky situation for everybody. If they bump the release schedule of when major expansions come out, like they've done over the last 2 years, to the holiday period, it actually benefits the clients, because many clients who otherwise wouldn't be exposed to Path of Exile and to the time sink that they get to put into Path of Exile over that period of time, the holiday period, they simply wouldn't be able to acquire those clients and serve those clients as well as what they can do by putting out major new releases around the holiday December-ish period. Right? So that's the benefit towards us. The drawback, well, you've already articulated the drawback. It means there's not a lot of staffers on hand for when things, hit the fan. So there's got to be a give and take here. I'm with you that it does suck that there's a whole bunch of content that comes out that doesn't have staff to back. On the other hand, I'm very, very happy that GGG doesn't treat their staff like many other gaming companies do. And I'm very, very happy as a client that they are willing to push stuff out over a holiday period when I am looking to play their game more than on another period of the year when simply the vast majority of the client base that would be able to play might not be able to play. The summer is a great example of that. Oftentimes, summer leagues have got a massive dip in their player base for whatever reason. Maybe some players have got more time to play in the summer. Maybe other players have less time to play in the summer, in the middle of the year. But the reality is GGG has determined, for the betterment of the community as well as for the company, this is the schedule over the last 2 years that they're releasing new content. And dare I say it, I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say they're probably shooting for something similar with POE 2, either for it to come out over the holiday season of 2020 or the holiday season of 2021. I doubt they'll just do it in the middle of the year, but feel free to come back in a year and a half and laugh at me when I'm proved wrong. Venito Star, man, I can say that name. Venito Star said, love POE, but not this league. That's fair enough. It's fair if you don't like it. I just wish, Venito Star, that you gave us a little bit more info so that way we understood exactly where you're coming from. There's probably a lot of different reasons not to like this league. We just don't know what reasons you would give. Nesterior says, I enjoy the league mechanic quite a lot, actually. When the build can react to some of the more melee, unfriendly mechanics, there are some very annoying mechanics from certain monsters, but I overall love that we can target a reward category, or multiple. It still takes patience, but we do get a good measure of control over our loot now with everything. Quality is subjective. This is something that we have been screaming about as a player base for the last 2 years, really, right? I guess since League Stones were introduced. So since League Stones were introduced, we all were crying out for more player agency, right? We want more player agency in the maps that we farm. We want more player agency in the items that we can craft. We want more player agency in the encounters that we experience. We want more player agency in the masters that we interact with and that we run their missions for. We want more player agency across the board inside Path of Exile. In a game such as Path of Exile that their leading developers all pride themselves on as being layers after layers after layers of multiple layers of RNG, I get that we want more control and more player agency, right? So Metamorph is kind of an answer to all of that in many ways. Not necessarily the new Atlas, but Metamorph certainly is. If you want to target farm maps, then you can target farm organ drops that are just going to drop you maps. If you want to target farm low-level essences, you can do that. If you want to target farm currency, you can do that. If you want to target farm a particular type of rare armor, you can do that. I don't think there has ever been a better time inside Path of Exile than to play solo self-found. Like, you can sustain your map pool, you can sustain your item pool, you know if you need an upgrade, you can go fight it. Like, yes, the Metamorphs are very difficult encounters, and so maybe you don't want to play solo self-found hardcore. But But there's been no better time to play solo self-found and be able to target farm for your build and target farm for exactly what it is that you are going for. And even if you're playing in Trade League, there's no better time to try to get a headhunter to drop for you, or to get just a pile of currency that you can then go buy whatever build it is that you're looking for. So in terms of player agency, Metamorph is like, at least in my mind, besides for Delve, basically Delve is like, to me, in my mind, the top end of player agency and what's allowable. Like Delve, then Betrayal, and then Metamorph. Like those three are like the top end side of full-on leagues and expansions dedicated towards player agency, and I absolutely love it. Mr. C. Mac says, I mean, aside from the league, the constant DCs and times where I rubber band backwards have been really bad. Have yet to see an update on the AMD issues, but including the league, I really like catalysts and I hope they stay. Being able to quality every piece of gear and being able to target specific stats is a really, really cool min-max aspect that I enjoy. I can't speak to the AMD issues because I'm not running on an AMD, but I do know a lot of us in Guild are running off of AMDs, and I know that that has been a problem. Hopefully that gets fixed soon. In terms of catalysts, I have never seen the number of players get into endgame crafting that we are now seeing here with Metamorph and with the 3.9 Atlas Conquerors expansion. Like, I haven't seen it. Personally, the thing that I can come closest to was back during Synthesis League, which I know a bunch of you are going to hate me for even saying the word synthesis. Oh my gosh, Iron, why could you? Rawr! Iron, why did you say synthesis? You ruined my day. You spilled milk all over my pants. Like, I'm sorry for mentioning synthesis, but synthesis as a crafting league got a whole bunch of players who didn't know anything about crafting into crafting. And you might say, yeah, well, I didn't meet anybody like that. Okay, maybe you didn't. We had literally hundreds of people who were interacting with crafting stuff on crafting websites and on crafting videos all across the community during a league that simply prior to that, people weren't interested in crafting. So I think, besides for Synthesis, this is the second most league that I have seen the most questions about crafting, about how to pull things together. Now, some of that is due to catalysts, and some of that is, of course, due to the various new exalted orbs and the new influence types. So I think between those two things, we've kind of come to this very, very perfect storm, as it were, of crafting, where there's a high interest in crafting, a high availability of new crafting stuff, and a whole bunch of people wanting to try out new and different and wacky combos. And some people figuring stuff out before other people and getting rich off of it. Some people accidentally figuring stuff out, like they're Mr. Bean. Some people, you know, just straight up going absolute ham on how they can target craft stuff and min-max it and then repeat it over and over again. So I think the catalysts most likely will be here to stay, as Metamorph will most likely absolutely, in my opinion, go core. I don't think they would have made the changes to the lingo like on Exalted Orbs and how Exalted Orbs will remove like catalyst influence and stuff like that. I don't think they would have changed the lingo in core currency already to accommodate for the new currency if they weren't already predisposed to saying this is most likely going core. So that's my opinion. JBD says, global update, great. League sucks. That's interesting. I wish you gave us some more opinion as to why you think the league sucks. David says, well, I switched to my Purifying Flame Miner. The bosses evaporate in about a second. My better geared Ice Shot character had 10 levels greater and has died 215 times, and I played it pretty well, if I do say. There is a balance issue, my friends. My goodness, I want to like 3.9, and I love the integration of all the past content. Absolutely love it. And I totally understand the appeal of a new Atlas, and frankly, I never liked to sextant or block my maps anyway. Hopefully, GGG will finish fixing the various issues and put in something to get eyes. I'm not one to complain, but I have hundreds of other organs. Good news is, David, that more balance patches for organ distribution are coming. They came out a little bit, I believe, yesterday or the day before, and then more are scheduled to come out throughout the upcoming weeks to hopefully fix that organ imbalance. But other than that, speaking of balance, yes, there is an imbalance, and yes, it was mentioned by a previous poster about actually going and playing, you know, Necro and finding that very, very boring. And of course, we're going to do a meta update again here in a few days and do an economy update again in a few days. But I think actually this league is still relatively balanced. I think, of course, there's lots of balancing issues in terms of DPS, you know, definitely scales towards miners. In terms of safety, definitely scales towards Necros. In terms of like life builds, of course, it scales towards anything that's Marauder or Duelist on the bottom side of the tree. Of course, if you want to go anything that's evasion based, you're going to go Ranger or Shadow. But in terms of balance, like in terms of true options that we have as players to play a wide variety of content inside Path of Exile, I actually think there's a great amount of variety right now. Like the amount of skills that players are playing, there's not a single skill that is above 30%. That has not in terms of the player base, according to POE Ninja. That has not happened in a Path of Exile league for over a year. For over a year, basically, you get about a month into a league, and by that time in a league, one skill has solidified itself as the dominant skill that everybody's using. And by everybody, I simply mean about 30 to 40% of the league. But that hasn't happened this league yet. So while on the one hand, yes, there are still some balance issues to work out, I've got to say, statistically speaking, like, this is actually one of the more balanced leagues. That still doesn't mean that it's balanced, but it just means that it's more balanced than where we've been at in the past. Tess Siger says, I like it, but I don't love it. Metamorphs are, let's say, quite hard, and pairing that with a new Awakener level bonus really threw me off when it came to just how I juice my maps. Like I am now playing a 85% Chaos Resistance Pathfinder with Divine Flesh and Darkscorn, and still sometimes get nuked out of nowhere. Also, damage still feels great on rares, but the second I meet a map boss, I basically know it's going to take a lot longer than usual. I guess they had to improve difficulty after all the power creep though, so not exactly complaining, still just adjusting. Still working on my Watchstones. It gets frustrating not getting Conquerors to spawn sometimes as I can't play too much right now because I have exams and my bachelor thesis coming up. So getting one stone a day is basically all I can do right now, and I kind of want to transition into mapping all sectors. Haven't gotten around to trying Awaken Gems, but that's next on my list. All in all, I love the abundance of content, but I'm still adjusting to newer high damage in life, and it messed with how good my build feels. Tess Seeger, first off, I got to say good luck on your bachelor's thesis. Secondly, the second thing that I've got to say is, isn't this what we all wanted? Like, isn't this what we all wanted? We all wanted new endgame content, so we got it. We wanted targetable bosses and a bossing league. We got it. And then we also wanted some power creep that was reined in. We got it. Oh, and also we wanted PoE to have a little bit more of that reminiscent, difficult feeling to like what old PoE used to feel like. Oh yeah, we got it. On the one hand, we've all gotten used to Path of Exile that's way too easy. I gotta say that. Maybe not all of us, but many of us have gotten used to Path of Exile that's simply way too easy. Many of us have gotten used to getting to maps, as well as maybe even killing Shaper or killing an endgame boss within a week or two of a league. And that's, simply from a design perspective, that's a nightmare. Because from a design perspective, those are supposed to be endgame things that like take most people the entirety of the league, if not multiple leagues, building up to their knowledge base for actually tackling those. So, on the one hand, we might say, oh, well, it's a little bit too hard and it's making me make some changes in my build. Yes, but that's a good thing. Like, it's forcing us to think outside of the box of the normal ways that we normally would approach things. It's making a whole lot of us do things like what you've done, Test, which is go, oh my goodness, I can't play this game with -10 chaos resistance anymore. I actually have to pay attention to chaos resistance or I won't be able to complete the hunter fight. Like, those sorts of decisions and those sorts of features, I guess, mechanics built into the game are making us as players dig deeper into Path of Exile and think more creatively about how we can get around things. For a moment, I'm just going to put on my hardcore elitist hat for just a moment and say, this is what hardcore players have to do all the time. Hardcore players all the time have to interact with new mechanics and go, huh, that looks spooky. How the hell am I going to deal with that? That looks like that can kill my character. That new mechanic or that new league mechanic looks really, really fun. I want to engage with it. But I've already seen 3 people rip to it in like Blood Aquas and before. How am I going to deal with that thing in maps? That's really attractive to some people. I get that that's not attractive to everybody, but that's really attractive to a lot of players who choose to make Path of Exile more difficult by playing hardcore. Now, for those of us who are playing softcore and enjoying it, hi, hello, I'm playing softcore this league. For those of us who enjoy softcore, we don't want that level of difficulty, right? Where we're going to lose our entire character if we've made a single mistake, or if the servers make a single mistake, right? We don't want to be on the recipient of that kind of RNG or that kind of penalty for missing on something. But we do want some kind of penalty. We don't want the whole game to feel like Twilight Strand if we're a level 90 character and we're just running through it mowing everything down. That doesn't feel like gameplay to us. Even if it is an action RPG where we're still getting to use skills and still getting to blow stuff up, there's just no challenge to it. Like, and that's inherent to wanting to play a game, is that there is some challenge to it. Now, we've all got different challenges that we want to overcome, but nonetheless, we all want there to be some kind of challenge. And 3.9 is it's GGG's very, very hard line stance that they are trying to up the difficulty. By the way, Test, just so that way you can be appreciative of this and be a little bit more aware, and others who are like you who are saying, man, it's getting a little bit tough. It is getting tough, but there are just as many players right now who are posting on the forums and on Reddit and on YouTube, on various community outlets, on Discord, and are saying, wow, this new endgame actually feels really, really easy. So just take it with a grain of salt. Wherever there's one side of the community saying, man, this is too hard, there's probably another side of the community that's saying it's too easy. Well, thanks so much for watching our video and for dropping comments down below with your own thoughts on what you think about 3.9. I have enjoyed hearing and listening and reading through all of your particular comments on this particular topic, but feel free to leave us another comment down below with your own thoughts. 3 weeks into Metamorph, what are your thoughts on Metamorph and the new Atlas, as well as the new Conquerors, as well as the Cirrus fight? Drop us a comment down below, and as always, thanks for watching, and I hope today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.